What was that?
I'm not sure.
You remember the outside? You can come in.
How many families have lived?
Technically, physical families, 1, 2, 3, 4 families, possibly 5 have lived here. It started off with the Minders family, so Wilhelmus Minders. He was one of the original founding fathers of Seneca Falls. He sort of purchased this land from the Baird Land Company, who he worked for, when the company went under around the 1820s. So he ended up buying this land, and he built sort of a small cabin on the property here. And that's what we consider to be the original house, was this very small 2-room cabin. And it was sold between him to a Silsby family known as the Silsbys, who only kept it for a year. We really don't know what they did with it in that 1 year, but it was immediately sold back to the son Edward, who came in and by 1855 had created this beautiful 2-story Italianate. There's actually 2 images of the house when we first come in to the right. There's 2, one drawing and one photograph of the Italianate, and then later on this house. So you can see that once we go inside. But so that Italianate, he built it, and he ended up living here with his family, his wife and daughter, both named Lilius, up until 1880. 1880, he had made some very poor business decisions and ended up almost losing the entire family's fortune, essentially. Edward was an oddball. So he ended up selling this property to Ellen Partridge, who had recently just lost her husband, and she came in, widow with no children, and did a complete renovation on the house. So she's the one who added the 3rd story to the building. She expanded the first 2 floors. She added in a lot of the custom stained glass windows that you might have seen when you were walking around, and a lot of the custom woodwork, brass work. Any of the custom work you really see was done by her. She only was with the property up until 1891. We're not really sure whether she lived here or not. Well, we don't have census records from it, but directories suggest her being here with the property, as well as newspaper records, but the family claimed that she never actually lived here, so not too sure. But 1891, she sold this house to the Becker family. Norman Becker worked as a banker downtown here in Seneca Falls, but the entire family had lived over in Waterloo. So they moved here in order to be closer to his work. He, along with his wife Catherine, there's 6 children, 5 daughters and a single son, and I say handful, but really a plethora of servants, including chambermaids, gardeners, maintenance men, a cook named Mary Merrigan. They had their own seamstress. It's believed they might have had their own governess that was with them for the first year. You know, a stable boy, a carriage man, a little bit of everything. And the family lived here up until 1961, when the remaining daughter from those 6 children, Florence, she sold the house to the Historical Society. So we've been here since 1961, but we have been an official historical society since 1896. So a lot of the stuff that you saw while walking around is stuff that is either original to people here in town, to different families, original to people within the county, or we do still have a couple Becker original items. Especially larger pieces of furniture like that desk you may have seen in one of the parlor rooms, and the dining room table is original to them as well.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So I noticed on the 3rd floor, there's this really old antique, like, dollhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any history with that? Is that
The
from around
very
town?
the very big one that's in the
Yes.
center of the room, that was made actually in 2008, I want to say. It is a 1/18 scale replica of this house.
Was one of the people that used to live here like a doctor or something?
Not a doctor. The doctor's exhibit that you saw upstairs was a mention to Dr. Anna Brown, who was a female doctor here in Seneca Falls. She actually helped establish the first hospital here in Seneca Falls in 1910. It is believed she actually did come to this house, though, in order to give birth to the first daughter of the youngest Becker daughter, essentially. So she helped someone give birth in this house, apparently. But it's sort of a small dedication to her and to the Seneca Falls Hospital that ran up until the 90s. And it shut down.
What all do people experience here when coming?
They experience a little bit of everything. Supposedly the hauntings began with the Becker family themselves, according to family testimony. It is believed that one of the spirits here is the ghost of Edward Minders himself. It is claimed that he was so angry that Ellen Partridge came in and changed the Minders family home that he swore that he was going to come back and cause sort of mayhem for the living. So he's described as a bit of a prankster. According to the Becker family, the kids would wake up at night seeing a man standing at the end of their bed. Paintings would sort of flip around by themselves. Things would move around the house. Just general things like that, the family would say. And we have stuff that's similar to that. People have claimed to have seen, the shadowy apparition of a man. Sometimes you will hear, the sound of a man talking in the next room. And considering it's all women that work here, that's kind of freaky.
Yeah.
He especially likes saying good morning and good night to you if you're the only person, coming in the mornings. Especially if you don't say good night to him the night before. He gets very offended by it. He also likes pulling on clothing and hair. I had a coworker who was standing in front of the drawing room here, and she was trying to get people out. It was like 9 o'clock at night. They were having this, I don't even remember what they were doing, because it was like right before I came. But she was trying to get everyone out, and she felt like a hand grab her bun and sort of pull her into the room. And she swore she could feel like the fingers just like against her scalp for the rest of the night. And when she turned around, because she was standing right in front of the ropes, so no one else was in that back room, and no one else was there when she turned around. I've had my bag pulled a couple times. We had an intern, it was so funny. A year ago, his name was Rowan. He was walking downstairs and he almost slipped, and he felt like a hand like grab his shoulder and like pull him up, and he thought it was like one of us following him down, so he turned to say thank you, and there was no one there, and it freaked him out. I was like, well, I would rather something grab you and help you than you falling down the stairs.
Yeah, because those stairs are freaking terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, so he's one of the spirits. He's one of the main ones that we've sort of identified by investigators, by stories. Another one being that of Mary Merrigan. She was the live-in cook and sort of overall maid for the Becker family. And she actually, there is one famous ghost story about her, and it is of the night she died. Because she worked for the family, we believe, up until the mid-1930s. And she got very sick, So she was sent away to a hospital, either here in town or here in the county, we're not too sure. And the night she died, Florence was having a dinner party with some friends, and she had already sent the cook home for the day. They were all finished, so they were just hanging out in the dining room. And she heard movement coming from the kitchen. So she was kind of like, okay, you know, that's weird. I sent everyone home. Who's out there? So she goes out there, and sure enough, Mary is standing there sort of messing with the stove. So she asks, you know, Mary, what are you doing here? You know, you're supposed to be miles away in a hospital. Did you escape? Did you try to come home? It is believed Mary had some sort of dementia, and that's why she was sort of sent away. So as soon as Florence, you know, walked a bit closer to her, Mary turned, gave a small wave, and completely disappeared. And ever since then, people have claimed to have heard, you know, the sounds of pots and pans being moved in the kitchen. Her room up on the 3rd floor, it's a very small bedroom in the back half of, it's like right next to the medical exhibit, that small bedroom right there. That's Mary's room. That room is, I would say, one of the most active places for many investigative groups. She does not like it when you touch or move stuff. People have seen both white wisps and also shadows going in and out of that room. I myself, a couple times on tours, because I'll turn around and I'll face people and walk backwards as I'm going down that hallway. I have seen, you know, shadows just streaking into that room behind visitors, and it kind of freaks you out for a second because you're like, you know. So she likes walking around up on that floor. So kitchen and 3rd floor for her. People have claimed to have seen a maid just wandering around the house in general, peeking in and out of windows, things like that. The 3rd spirit or spirits that are claimed to be here in the house is that of a child or children. We're not really sure exactly who, but sometimes if you're here by yourself here in the house, you can hear the sounds of children running up and down on the 3rd floor, running up and down stairs. There's a toy in the toy room. It's this bear with red eyes. Sometimes he moves around the house. That one I'm not sure if it's like a joke that someone's playing or not, but I have gone up there and he's been moved in that room. So I don't know if someone's playing a prank on me or not. We've gotten a lot of EVPs of kids, you know, a lot of crying. Once you get later on in the night, you won't really hear them as much. I always joke with the investigators and say it's because they've been told to go to bed.
Yeah.
Sometimes if the investigators are like, oh, you know, you guys don't have to go to bed yet, you know, you're fine. Sometimes they'll get stuff with the kids. Other than that, sometimes phantom smells are pretty common in the house. EVPs for sure, light anomalies. They especially like playing the flashlight game. That one is a favorite of them. I have seen a massive black shadow that seemed intelligent up on the 3rd floor. Yeah, so the shadow, I was with an investigative group and we were up in the 3rd floor. They all were sitting in the toy room, but I was sort of sitting in like half the doorway, half the hallway, because there's like 7 of us. No, there's 8 of us. And it wasn't sort of open like it is now. It was a lot more condensed. I recently just went through and changed it. But we were sitting there and they had the idea of turning off all the lights, and that way, you know, let our eyes adjust and we'll see if stuff happens. So we were sitting up there, and right above where I was is sort of a fire smoke detector thing that flashes every once in a while, and it would sort of, you know, light up the hallway a little bit, that way you could sort of see. And I was sitting there and looking down the hallway towards the medical exhibit. I just see this like massive shadow, and it was almost halfway up those racks that you saw there. So it was definitely a lot taller than me, based on what I saw. And it was sort of just like hanging out there, standing there. So I was telling the guy, the main investigator, Aaron. I think his name was Aaron. Either Aaron or Nick. I don't remember. It's been a year. But I was like, hey, Aaron, there's something down that hallway. So he was like, all right, let's turn on the lights and let's see if it does it again or if it, disappears. Let's, take a break for a moment and we'll reconvene and we'll do it again. So we take a 5-minute break. We have all our flashlights on and then we turn it off. And this time he sits right next to me and he's like, okay, we're going to do it again. If you see it again, let me know. And if we both see it, we'll try to talk to it.
Yeah.
See if we can get it to do something. So after about 15 or so minutes, we see it again. It's standing there a little bit closer this time. And I sort of am like, hey, Aaron, look, there it is. And he looks, and he's able to see it as well. So he was like, oh, that's so cool. So he was like, all right, try to talk to it. Try to get it to do something. So I was like, all right. So I stick my leg out in the hallway and I was like, all right, if you are actually something, can you reach down and touch my leg? And to me, it looked like the shadow started to shrink, as if it was starting to crouch down to grab my leg. And one of the investigators in the room, I don't know if she saw what we were doing. She claimed to have seen something running down the hallway towards them, and that's why she sort of flicked on her leg. She was terrified.
Yeah.
She was like a newbie at it, and she was just like scared shitless the entire time. So we were so mad because, it was like right about, it was right about to touch my leg, and she turned the lights on, and then everybody turned their lights on because they were like, "What's happening? What's happening?" And oh god, I was so mad. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
The original story was that Mary, the maid, she came from Ireland to work for the family, and with her she brought sort of this little Irish girl that was going to be a companion for the kids, so another servant. And when she got here, she became very sick. Of course, diseases in the new land, and she ended up falling down that stairwell and passing away. But I found that Mary is from Albany, so the little Irish girl does not really make any sense.
Yeah.
But there are good spirits in the house.
Yeah.
I know that for sure. So there was supposedly an exorcism that was done in like the 90s to try and get the little girl, because apparently her spirit would sit in the stairway and cry. So they apparently did sort of like something to try and release her spirit.
Yeah.
Not sure if it worked or not.
So there is records of there being an exorcism down here?
I don't know if it was an exorcism or if it was just like a blessing on that area. The people who work here call it an exorcism, but to be honest with you, they could give two shits about the paranormal. So
Yeah.